Alright, so today guys, I got a new video for you guys. I think you guys are gonna enjoy this video. It's a very interesting topic because it's a topic that I think very few people ever think about or ever consider, and that is um, are Christian denominations biblical? The reason why I made this video is because I don't know if this ever happened to you, where somebody would try to convince you that their denomination is the correct denomination or their denomination is the true denomination. And whenever someone says that to me, now I should say, not back then, but now, I would say is that did any of the authors in the Bible identify with your denomination? Or can we find your denomination by name verbatim in the Bible? And if not, why? And and that is the question that I think very few people let slide all the time. And you should not let that slide. If your denomination is the ordained denomination that we need to be a part of for today, why is it not found in the Bible by name? Why do you have to give me conjecture? Just tell me that we fit the criteria of what they're talking about in the Bible. Now on the screen right here, is basically showing you the early origins of Christianity, all the way down to the 16th century, where the majority of the Protestant churches started to sprout up, so to speak. And you find the Baptists here, and this is just on Wikipedia if you're interested. You have the Calvinist movement, Presbyterian, the Lutheran, the Adventist Church, the Pentecostal Church, the Holiness Church, Methodist. I mean, essentially, in the past, really in the past 200 to 300 years, where the bulk of the major denominations started, or their when they started to form. Now, there, according to this site, there's 920 million Protestants worldwide. But I want to show you guys or tell you guys about a number that I saw prior to making this video, that I think there are, not think, what I read, that there are 30,000 plus Christian denominations worldwide. Okay? Over 30,000 Christian denominations worldwide. Now, here's just a few denominations. Obviously, we're not going to um, go through them at all, because this video will be like a whole month straight. Because each one believe things a little bit differently. Some diametrical doctrines are different. I mean, essentially, they're like different religions, although they may not profess to be, because they're all under the banner of Christianity. But in all actuality, that's how they function. But back to my initial point, why I'm making this video, are they biblical? What I don't, and this is just a logical question, and it's a fair question, is that, and it's not to say that your denomination is wrong, but if you're so right that you're the true denomination and your interpretation is the correct interpretation, why didn't any of the authors identify and call themselves, I'm Southern Baptist? Why didn't Moses say that he's a Calvinist? Why didn't Jesus say that he's an Adventist? It would make, for put it this way. Let me find one real quick. Let's use Jehovah Witness for example. And let me just say this. Every denomination that I mentioned in this video is not meant to be condescending at all. I'm not trying to tear down no denomination. I'm just asking the very basic question that I think people never ever ask themselves or ever consider. Let's just say Yeshua, Jesus, was a Jehovah Witness. The disciples were Jehovah's Witness. The prophets were Jehovah's Witness. I mean, everybody in the Bible were Jehovah's Witness and worship in the kingdom hall. Then it would make sense if I am following the Bible to be a Jehovah's Witness. I can see the premise behind it. I can see the precept that okay, I see this is the reason why and I'm just using Jehovah's Witnesses as an illustration, but insert whatever denomination you want to insert. So if it was the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, whether that be Mormonism, or if you're a non-denominational, whatever, Pentecost, I don't care what it is. If everyone in the Bible identify with your denomination, it makes sense because you can see that is the blueprint. Now, obviously, times has changed, and so we may reason things a little bit differently because of our culture. But nevertheless, we're still the same movement. We're still the same faith, or we use the term religion. But this is not what we have. Look at this. This doesn't make any sense because they all are reading from the same book. Now, there's exceptions to the rule. Again, there's some that have their own they have other books that they read in conjunction with the Bible that they believe to be inspired or canon. And so, but nevertheless, if you go into any of these churches, no matter what it is, I guarantee you the main book of inspiration is going to be the Bible. It would make more sense if everybody had their own version of the Bible. Well, let me not say own version of the Bible. If they had a different type of Bible, meaning that because some churches have their own translations of the Bible. That's different. I'm talking about completely different Bibles, different authors, different time period, different theologies, different doctrines. I mean, I'm talking water and oil differences. But that's not what we're talking. We're having one book and we have so many different interpretations. But when I look at math, 1 plus 1 equals 2. So what we have here is 1 plus 1 equals 20. 1 plus 1 equals 50. 1 plus 1 equals 5. 1 plus 1 equals 8. And all them swearing up and down that they right. But the very essential question that I ask, like I said, even if you are right, why can't we find a trace? Why can't we find your name in the book? When we read, for example, in Isaiah 45, God said he's going to raise up Cyrus. Isaiah prophesied about Cyrus, meaning that there are things in the Bible that the prophets prophesy. Why, if this is so important, if this group is so important, why don't we find a name in there? But yet, I must follow your religion. That doesn't make any sense. Now, let me say this too. Again, this is not meant to be condescending, but what I find that people who are indoctrinated, and how I in turn define indoctrination, is where you don't have any more common sense. Meaning that you can't it's like you, if you believe in God, you cannot have you can't have common sense no more. That's how I define indoctrination, where it's like, and I don't see it that way. I believe that God has given us a brain to think, to reason, to ask questions. And there's nothing wrong asking questions, because when you ask questions, that's how you learn. How many students or children in a class, how do they learn? They raise their hand and ask questions, things they don't understand, things that don't make any sense. So I'm just raising the question. How is this possible? So I'm going to close by saying this, and this again, this is not an attack against denominations, and I'm not even saying that the Most High are not with these people in these denominations. But this is what I'm saying though, so you guys don't misunderstand me. Let me tell you the role of the denomination. Let me tell you the real role of the denominations. The denominations use the Bible to validate their existence or substantiate their purpose. And so they teach you, whether you are aware or not, how to interpret the Bible. Let me give you an example. You read in the Bible, let's say you're a new believer, okay? Let's use that term, new believer, meaning that I guess that is a way of saying you've come off the street or something or whatever. You're new to church or you're new to the faith or whatever, and you have no prior understanding. And so you may read the Bible and it may be verbatim. It says the woman went to the well or this, that, and the other, and then somebody come along and say, hey, when you see woman, woman represents the church. And so whether you know it or not, in a very subtle way, they're teaching you how to read. So although you may see something verbatim, you're never going to look at it what you're reading. You're going to look at it the way they want you to look at it. You see what I'm saying? They want to teach you how to interpret the Bible. That's why they all say, or not all, but the majority say their interpretation is correct. Because they want you to see it that way. And so you adopt the premise that that way is correct, not knowing that you're adopting the premise that they want you to believe, because that's the only way you're able to stay there. So when we get to the New Testament, where God said he's going to, what is actually a quote from the Old, but he said, I'm going to make a new covenant with Israel and Judah, and I'm paraphrasing, right? The question is, why is that covenant made with your with your denomination? He said the new covenant between the house of Israel and Judah. Explain that. How do we fit in that? See, then you got somebody to come along and try to explain that way, explain it away, add conjecture, add this, add that, in order to make it fit, in order for it to work. But it does not fit. When you read it verbatim, when you read the Bible verbatim, it does not fit. You need somebody to come along to make it fit for you. And so this is how they're able to get away with it. So in all actuality, yeah, but God knows his people, and he's opening up his people's eyes to see that, hey, there's more to this story that that we being fed. These denomination has blinded us, in my opinion. And it's not by the innocent pastor. A lot of these pastors are innocent because all they're going off is what they learned and what they taught. So it's like a cycle. It's what has been perpetuated over and over and over. But then people who are at the institutions, they know exactly what they're doing, people. And again, you think you're following God, but in all actuality, you're following the denomination's version of God, if that makes sense. They want you to look at God through their lens. And all I ask is a very basic, simple question, and it's fair. Why can I find your denomination in the Bible? Why didn't any of the authors identify with these denominations? Because they all started after the Bible was written. It would make more sense if they started by the time, for example, let's just say uh, first century, like 10 years later, that the Baptist movement started, or the Pentecost movement started, and 10 years later, and they all identify and say, okay, we're calling ourselves Pentecostals and this, that, and the other. No, but these started 1,500, 1,600 years later, and that's just from the first century. We're not going back in the time of Moses, in the times of Jeremiah. We're not even going back there. Did David, I mean, if you had a time machine and go back and say, hey, man, you know what, I'm a Presbyterian, they'd be like, what is that? Yeah, we're following the book. How you following the book and you calling yourself Presbyterian? So people, there's nothing wrong with thinking And I think that's the problem today. People don't think. God doesn't want you to be ignorant. And that's why this channel is called Hosea 4:6. We are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Why? Because we always reject knowledge. The truth is there. We have to search for the truth, but it's there. These people are not giving us truth. They're giving us religion versus God. There's a difference. Shalom.